Business Association, become a member. I'm not a member because I don't have a business. All right, so all of you, since you are here, are fairly well attuned to town politics. So you know that we have several positions that don't even have a single person signed up. So what we've decided to do is invite write-ins to come in and talk as well. And we're going to stick to the traditional format to allow people to introduce themselves, give them a couple of minutes, and then we'll have questions and answers. If no one from the crowd wants to ask a question, I will ask a question, which are always very difficult. So please make sure you have your own questions. If you do ask a question, please come up to the podium because as we move through time, more and more people like to watch these events in their pajamas and stay home, and we have a huge crowd on the television. So please come up to the podium and ask your question. Given the number of people, and some people have already come up to me tonight, and I appreciate that, who are write-ins, we're going to break this into two sections, school and town, and I'm going to ask all of the school candidates to come up, and then we'll go through position by position, and then you will depart, and then all the town candidates will come up. So if you're a write-in candidate for the school or the town, please come up with your respective species of person and sit with us. Is there anybody? I have Roger, Katie, and Helen Sanders. Is there anyone else here who's running for, would like to time as a write-in? All right. So if you're interested in a school position, could you please come up and sit at one of the chairs with a microphone, and we'll run through all the school positions. And that would be, for those of you that aren't aware that you're actually running, Penny Botterman for clerk, Chris Hawkins for moderator, Elizabeth McKinney for school board, Kimberly Shelton for school board, and Annette Brousseau for treasurer. We will be out of here very quickly tonight. Seriously? All right. Anybody want to write in all of a sudden? Anybody? I mean, you all guys came out. Somebody, all right. I will give it 5 more seconds. Great. Let's move on to the town, shall we? Let me just run through one thing real quick. All right, so Penny Botterman is running for clerk. There was only one position open, so she has indicated her interest in running. Chris Hawkins, who has been our moderator, is running for school moderator. There is only one. There are 2 vacancies on the school board. Both Elizabeth and Kimberly have signed up, 2 positions, and treasurer Annette Brousseau is running singly. So that is your slate for school board. Would the town people please come up? Someone, anyone? Including the write-ins? Nice to meet you. All right. So we're going to start with the budget committee. There are 4 positions. 3 of them are for 3-year terms, and 1 of them is for a 1-year term. And so we have Joe. Joe, get up here. Who has signed up for a 3-year term, and we have Roger, who has indicated his interest in being a write-in candidate, also for a 3-year term, correct? So we'll go with you guys first, then we'll move on to the planning board. Bill Doucette, I don't see you sitting here, but I know you're here. Chris Hawkins, who is also up for the school moderator. We have the 1-year term for budget committee, which no one has indicated a write-in. No one has indicated willingness to be a write-in for the trust funds, trustee of the trust funds, and we have Helen Sanders, who's interested in running as a write-in for town council. I'm sorry.
John Kuiper.
John.
I didn't.
You didn't come and talk to me beforehand. This is how you get in trouble. All right, I'm sorry. John Kuiper. Yeah. And which are you?
Town council.
For town council. Yeah. Great. So you 2 will be last because your position is the most punishing. So, Joe,
Okay.
why don't you give us, or I'm sorry, Joe, why don't you give us an introduction and tell us about the budget committee? Whoa. A question already. How exciting.
My husband, Colin White, is.
Can you come up to the microphone? I'm sorry. It's just, everybody's going to want to know this.
My husband, Colin White, is on his way, and he's thrown in his hat for town council. He just texted me, he's on his way from Exeter.
That-
He should be here momentarily.
Okay. Hopefully he'll get here by the time we get to town council. Thank you. Anyone else recruiting anybody else momentarily for positions here? Are you? Okay, come on up. Things are getting interesting. There's a lot of other positions as well. Are you interested in being a write-in? This is how it happens. Those of you that decide to not go to meetings at work, don't you always get appointed to a committee or something when you're not around? It's kind of how it's going right here. All right, Joe.
Okay, my name is Joe Lamatina. I'm running for Budget Committee. I've lived in Newmarket for 40 years.
Joe, make sure you speak into the mic, sorry.
I live in Newmarket for 40 years. I've been married to the same lady for 45. I've had 3 children go through the Newmarket school system and currently have a grandson in the elementary school. I did serve on the Budget Committee in the 90s for 3 years, and I stopped because it was too difficult with work. As of this May, I am officially retired, and so figured I'd get my head back into Newmarket politics here. That's about it.
Great.
Questions?
Thank you very much. Roger?
I'm Roger Cady. I'm running as a write-in candidate for Budget Committee. And my wife and I moved to Newmarket 2 years ago. We've spent, since 1988, we've been in the Seacoast at Stratham and Newcastle. So we know a bit about the Seacoast, but I really like what I find in Newmarket. And I think it's a well-run town, and I like to keep it that way. And I'm running for Budget Committee to help in hopefully make Newmarket as efficient and as effective a town as possible, and one that serves the needs of the community. My background is in business and in consulting for business, and I have a lot of expertise and experience in working in nonprofit organizations as well. So I think it's very applicable to the finance and budget for the town of Newmarket.
Great, thank you both. While the crowd figures out what questions they want to ask, I want to thank everybody who's willing to step up and serve. But I think it's most important if the people ask questions. So please come on up to the podium, ask a question. Anybody got a question? Yes. We got 2 questions. Everybody's so polite.
My name is Mickey Burns. I live at 135 Ash Swamp. I'm a current member of the Budget Committee, so I had a question for the 2 gentlemen who are running. What drew you to sort of the stepping out into the public and sort of joining this? What's the attraction to even running at all?
Okay. I'll go first. Okay.
Please.
Well, like I said, I've lived in Newmarket for 40 years. I love Newmarket. I did serve on the Budget Committee in the 90s. I'd like to get back into it. I feel for the people in this town, I know we have a very large tax burden compared to some of the others, with water as well. If anything I've learned in life, it's never say never. So I would never say that I am not going to vote for a budget that is an increase, but my mantra or my plan is to work towards a budget that is either a default budget or less than the default budget. At least try to go that route. I hope the people continue to help the people of Newmarket. I see a lot of people that write in what the hell's going on in Newmarket saying, I can't afford to live here anymore. That's my goal, is to try to help that, work that.
Uh, I felt that the budget is a kind of the center of where the town activities can be seen. And I thought that it would be a good place for me to be able to hopefully add some positive things to what the town is doing. I believe that the town government needs to be efficient, it needs to be effective. I think that we need to look at each budget item in terms of what it does for people in the town. We can't burden people with unreasonable taxes, but we also
thousands and thousands of applications, and they whittle it down to 3 people. And the interview process starts, and there are 3 people that make it through all the weeding out of the resumes.
Bug on.
You have to punchline.
Go to the punchline.
Come on.
Anyway, those 3 people. We're gonna continue the joke. I'm gonna take them out because we need to lighten the mood a little bit. All right. So there. And I'm an attorney, so this is a lawyer joke. One of them is a philosopher. One of them is a mathematician, and the third one is a lawyer. And so there's a huge long conference table with 10 people at it. They invite the 3 people in. First to come in is the philosopher. And the interviewee says, "We have only one question for you. What is 2 plus 2? And the philosopher interlocks her fingers, leans back on the chair. "And that depends," she says. "What is 2? What is? What is plus?" It's hard to answer that question. There's really no answer. And they said, "Thank you very much for the question." She leaves. Next comes in the mathematician, and the interview committee says, "We have one question for you. What is 2 plus 2? The mathematician leans forward and says, 4. And they say, "Thank you very much. You can leave." The attorney walks in, and they say, "We only have one question. What is 2 plus 2? The attorney leans back in his chair and closes the door. He looks at them all in the eye, and he says, "What do you want it to be?" All right, that's my only joke. We're back on the air. What is an efficient government?
Efficient government.
What do you want it to be?
What would you like it to be? Yeah. Well, I think there are a couple things. One is we can look at programs that we're doing and look at whether we're making good use of technology, whether that program is still current, whether it should be in place. That is one part of efficiency. Another is to look at other towns that are of similar size and demographics and look at how we compare to them. There may be places where they are more efficient than we are, and we can learn from them. Conversely, we may be more efficient, they can learn from us. I think there's a positive bent to either of those.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other questions for the Budget Committee members? Okay. Again, let me remind you, Joe, you will be on the ballot. You have signed up, and Roger, you want to be a write-in for the 3-year position.
Write-in for the 3-year, and I would caution you when you write in, any candidate you write in, you have to darken the oval, the bubble next to the name, or it won't get counted.
Please do that, having been a moderator. We will pull it out, and we will test the intent of the voter, but it is tough. So there are 3 positions. There are 2 gentlemen who have indicated, so there's a 3rd position, and there is also another Budget Committee position that is just for 1 year. So there are 2 positions open for which nobody has indicated an interest, just so you know. Okay, so I'm going to cover moderator because Chris, I don't believe, is here. So Chris Hawkins is running for both school and town moderator, and has been doing that for several years now. The trustee of the trust funds, did anybody walk in who wants to be a write-in for the trustee of the trust funds? Okay, so that'll be an interesting one. So planning board, Bill? Is Eric, did Eric show up? I didn't see him walk in. So Eric Boderman is signed up. There are 2 positions. William Doucette, Bill Doucette is signed up as well. Bill, why don't you tell us about yourself and the planning board?
Thank you, Clay. I'm Bill Doucette. I've been a resident in Newmarket for about 30 years. Native from New Hampshire. I graduated from UNH before moving into town here with my family. I'm a professional surveyor, and through my career, I have represented developers and conservation agencies to planning boards throughout the Seacoast area, so I've had the opportunity to work with many different planners through the regulatory process. And a few years after I moved to Newmarket, I joined the Conservation Commission. I was a member of that for several years and a chair for a couple of years. After that, I coached youth soccer, had a great time with that for a while. And then more recently, for the past 4.5 years, I've been chair of the Board of Licensure for land surveyors in Concord. And most recently, I've been a alternate member of the planning board, and am now seeking a full-time position on the planning board.
Great, thank you, Bill. Does anybody have any questions for Bill? Anyone? Because of our professional relationship and our background, I refuse to ask you any questions. Anyone? Give you a few more minutes. Bill, what do you think is the most important thing confronting the planning board over the next year?
4.
4 things?
No, just the number 4. So, challenges with the planning board over the next several years. Actually, I think the Newmarket Planning Board has been in good shape for a long time. Like I said, I've worked in many different communities, and there are different philosophies at different planning boards, and the planners help institute those philosophies. But basically, if you look at it as one philosophy or the other, one is regulations are to stop development, or regulations are to manage development. And Newmarket, in my experience, has always been the type of planning board that helps an applicant navigate through the regulations to meet them, instead of creating walls and discouraging applicants. So I think Newmarket's been in good shape for a long time, and will continue to be.
Anyone think of any questions while I gave you that time? All right. So we're down to the town council. If those of you who aren't running for the town council want to grab your seats so you can ask questions, please feel free to do so. So with the 4 of you, which is exciting, thank you. Go ahead. Let's go around the horn and introduce ourselves. Take a couple minutes, take as long as you want. I'll shut you off after 10 minutes. And then we'll go to questions. Okay?
Okay. My name is John McLaughlin. I recently announced my candidacy on the What's Going On in Newmarket page. Oh, how is this good? Okay. How about now? We good? All right. So my name is John McLaughlin. I recently announced my candidacy for town council on the What's Going On in Newmarket website or Facebook page. I've been living in town for a little over 20 years, married, 2 kids in the school system, and I've spent better part of 44 years complaining about politics and social media, and I figured now would be a time to actually do something to enact the changes that I'd rather see than sit by and just complain. So here I am.
My name is John Kuiper. I own Johnny Boston's down the street. I bought the building a couple years ago, and when I bought the building, I kind of decided I would at some point get involved in town politics a little bit more as soon as I started writing those tax checks. I served on the zoning board from 2015 to 2017, and I'm currently on the Energy and Environment Committee. 3 things that I had kind of wanted to get involved with in terms of town council was one, parking. It's not a huge issue yet, but I think it will be a bigger issue as the town continues to grow. There's a couple days a week, Friday nights, where parking gets a little tight. Sometimes during the day, people can't find parking. I think there's some easy solutions working with the business association to just ask the town, the employees of the different restaurants and stuff to just park, by the river or whatever. They used to send out an email to all the employees or all the owners of towns kind of asking them to ask their employees to sort of park off the street. I think that reminder just kind of helps to, so that the employees know who the parking is supposed to be for. The second thing was with the Energy and Environment Committee, we've been looking at municipal composting, which we think in the long term could alleviate some of the municipal waste expenses. Because if you take the food out of the municipal waste, it's a lot cheaper to put in a composting facility as opposed to burying under the ground with all the plastic and everything. And the third thing that I had really wanted to look at was reviving the Old Homes Day or Heritage Festival. I thought that, I always thought those were really cool events, and I would love to see, something happen. I know Amy from the Record talked about maybe a Newmarket Day or something like that. I think that'd be really good for the community to have a day, arts and music and that kind of stuff. So my name is John Kuiper, again, a writing candidate, so thank you.
Thank you. Helen?
I want to thank the Newmarket Business Association for sponsoring this candidates night and giving all of us a chance to introduce ourselves to you. My name is Helen Sanders. I've lived at 14 Hilton Drive in Newmarket for almost 17 years with my husband of 46 years, Don. When we decided to leave Barrington, we looked around at various other towns and decided that Newmarket was where we wanted to go, and we have not been disappointed. Watching the downtown grow over the last few years, having coffee at Crack Skulls, breakfast at the Big Bean, or watching the ducks on the river with my granddaughter, this was the right choice. Having retired a few years ago, I had been contemplating running for town office in the next election cycle, but when no one stepped forward this year to put their name on the ballot, I decided maybe it was time for me to step up. My background includes almost 30 years as a certified public accountant, working with individuals, small businesses, and local not-for-profit groups. I was a founding partner of Sanders & Karcher CPAs in Portsmouth, from which I have now retired. I understand the needs of small businesses and the important role they play in keeping Newmarket vibrant. My tax season work made me very aware of tax burdens we all feel, whether it's our federal tax burden or our local property taxes. After every tax season ended, I spent the rest of the year assisting small businesses and auditing not-for-profits that received federal funding. As an auditor, it was necessary to gather facts, weigh the information, and reach a conclusion based on those facts. If I am elected, I plan to bring the same analytical skills to my work on the council. I'm an active member of St. Mary's Church in Newmarket. I'm a member of their finance committee, and I also serve as a lector and a Eucharistic minister. I am the current coordinator for the program at St. Mary's Church that supports Seacoast Family Promise, a program for families in transition. 3 weeks a year, our church provides shelter and meals to families experiencing homelessness in the Rockingham County area. Last year, we were able to have 2 local groups join us, and this year I'm hoping for 3. I've been the treasurer of the Hilton Drive Homeowners Association for 17 years. My husband and I participate in the Newmarket Day of Caring and the roadside cleanup. I support our local food pantry, 68 Hours of Hunger, and the Back to School Supply Drive. I have held public office before. Before moving to Newmarket, I lived up the road a piece in Barrington for 26 years, and while there I was elected to the Library Trustee Board, and I served as the board's treasurer. I oversaw the expansion of our library and the hiring of a new librarian. I also served as president of the Barrington Chamber of Commerce for 2 years. My granddaughter is currently a kindergartner in Newmarket, and I'm aware of the issues surrounding our schools and the importance of our educational system. I began my career as a teacher both in public school and as the owner of the Gingerbread Preschool in Barrington. As a former softball coach, I support our Newmarket Recreation Department in the important role they play in the lives of the children of Newmarket. As a taxpayer in the town, I am very aware of the increasing tax burden. I strongly believe there's a need to maintain town infrastructure and also fiscal responsibility. I want to see Newmarket continue to grow and prosper, but keep it affordable for the current residents. I now live on a fixed income, and I want to be able to stay here. Based on prior experience, I believe I would be able to make a positive contribution to the town council. I am motivated to serve the public interest with a broad vision of what is in the best interest of the entire community, both now and in the future. I ask for your support to write in my name on Election Day. Again, that's Helen Sanders. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Colin White, and I thank you for letting me sneak in here late. I've lived in Newmarket for the past 25 years, ever since getting out of the U.S. Army in 1994. I served our nation for 14 years, stationed in Germany 3 times, stateside 3 times. I grew up a couple miles north of here in Presque Isle, Maine. Just slightly more, and they do have a lot more snow than we do this winter. I am a 25-year member of the Robert G. Durgan Post 67, the American Legion, right here in Newmarket. I'm also past commander of Post 67, serving 2 terms. 24-year member of the Newmarket Community Church, serving on most of the boards and committees, to include holding the title of the church moderator for a total of 8 years. I am currently the president of the board of directors of the Crossings at Sleepy Hollow Cooperative, formerly known as Sleepy Hollow Mobile Home Park on New Road. It's a resident-owned community. We became a co-op almost 4 years ago. I've held the office of president since the inception of the corporation, of the cooperative, nearly those 4 years. Politically and personally, I consider myself to be a conservative. I try to use common sense in decision-making whenever possible, which that's the only thing that I have to rely on is common sense. So therefore, I don't hold loyalty to any political party. I hold loyalty to what I believe is best for a community, best for the state, and best for the nation. I know I've got a ton to learn. I have never been in town government, although I was on the original Veterans Trust, I believe it was called, back quite a few years ago here in Newmarket as well when it was formed. So I am jumping into something that I have, as a friend of mine said today, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. But I'm willing to jump in with all I have to serve this town that I now consider my hometown. I married a hometown girl. My wife is Shirley Gonnett. Gonnetts live out on New Road, and I've been in this town for more than 100 years. Dame Road. See, I knew where she lived.
Wow.
Somewhere out there.
At least I called her Shirley.
Good job.
But I would appreciate if you consider voting for me as a write-in candidate on March 12th for town council. Thank you very much in advance, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Great. Thank you all. Anyone? Nope.
No, lots of
Oh,
people.
it's a line. How exciting.
Wow.
Hi, my name is Andy DeMeo. I live at 2 Spring Street in Newmarket. This question is mainly for John McLaughlin, but I would like the others to comment after I'm finished. You just now announced that you, or shared with us rather, that you first announced your candidacy on Facebook on the What the Hell is Going On in Newmarket page, and I've gone and looked at your profile and found that several years ago you made your cover photo a Confederate flag. For those of you who are not familiar with Facebook, a cover photo is the most prominent and visible way you can share or display a photo. Now that you've decided to run for public office, I was wondering if you had any comment on that, and I would like to hear the other candidates' comments as well.
Sure. I did answer that question about, I think, 10 times on that thread. Basically, for me, I'm able to separate history from feelings. And honestly, my Facebook, I use it for entertainment. I don't use it for, keeping in touch with all of my relatives, and I don't take it seriously enough. I have a lot of socialist friends on my Facebook page who I like to play with politically, debating and whatnot. So I tend to, I posted a Confederate flag profile picture. I had one of Hillary Clinton. I had one of Obama, I think. And it's not like, I'm posting a Confederate flag because I'm Southern and I'm joining a hate group. I'm doing it because I like busting my friends on Facebook. It's what I use it for. So I apologize if it somehow upset anybody, but honestly, I left my Facebook profile public just for this reason, just so, because everything comes up anyway, right? So I make it private, somebody sees it, and why are you hiding it? I'm not hiding it. And it's not a serious, life conviction type of thing for me. So I hope that answered your question.
It does, thank you. Do the other candidates have any comment?
I'll just say that I find I personally have been sort of trying to avoid Facebook as much as possible. I use it for my restaurant and promotion and stuff, but I find a lot of times people say and do things on Facebook they wouldn't do in person, and it can quickly get toxic. So I think one thing I'd like to see is more interaction with people in face-to-face and less on Facebook. I think that things can kind of spiral out of control there, and people can say things, like I said, that they don't really mean, and that they would never say, to you in person. And I think it's just something as a small community we've got to keep in mind and not, not get sucked in too much into that whole world.
I would tend. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, let's keep the same.
Okay.
Let's keep the same.
I'm very similar to what you were saying. I used to keep track of my granddaughters and what they're doing in their dance classes. I also follow several national kind of magazines. Ascension Presents is one of the ones I follow, as well as some of the major news. I follow their feeds. I try not to post anything too personal on Facebook. I like having interactions face-to-face with people. I'd rather meet you for coffee at Crack Skulls. And I don't believe that Facebook is a good place to argue with people. I really like to have eye contact. I like to see the person I'm talking with.
And I would echo what John said as well about face-to-face as opposed to on Facebook, because I've worked customer service for the last 20+ years, and everyone I'm finding on Facebook is the same as they are on the telephone. Everyone's 6'4"
And gorgeous.
online. And people say things that they wouldn't otherwise say to your face. So I use my Facebook page for mostly personal stuff. Have I made political comments over the years? I'd lie if I said I hadn't. But yeah, I'm more in favor of face-to-face, which we've lost complete touch with, based on the fact that it's so much easier to interact with someone when you're face-to-face than it is over a series of tweets or a series of emails or a series of Facebook posts. It just takes the personal part of everything out of it, and it is hard to the inflection in your voice is impossible to write in a Facebook text, in an email. Face to face, it's really easy for me to tell you to have a nice day, and you know that I meant it, as opposed to have a nice day.
Exactly.
So.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question, and thank you for all of your honest answers. I appreciate that. Next.
Hi, I'm Tony Weinstein, and I live at 275 Ash Swamp Road. I'm a current member of the town council and going into my 6th year on the council. And so my question to everyone is about leadership, and in particular, what issues you or topics that you think that you would like to lead on in our town, and then more importantly, how you would go about leading on those issues.
All right, so you've proposed a multi-pronged question.
Yeah.
Can you summarize them
Two-parter.
again? Because we're gonna have to go through all four.
Yeah.
We'll
So
do
just
it. Are you
what-
comfortable going in reverse?
Most definitely.
Okay, do it again.
So just what issues you'd like to lead on and how you would go about leading.
Living where I live at Sleepy Hollow, which most people in town know it as Sleepy Hollow Mobile Home Park, taxes are a major issue. Affordability to live in Newmarket is a major issue for people within the cooperative that I'm the president of. So I think taxes in this town, I think a lot of other things that will make a difference to the people that are either right at the middle income or below. I heard someone say, and again, it was on Facebook, I heard someone say, if the taxes are too expensive for you, then just move. Someone shouldn't have to just move because they can't afford to live somewhere. Affordable housing, affordable rent is something that luckily the majority of us don't have to worry about, but there is a certain percentage of this town that does have to worry about it every single day. So I think taxes and affordability of housing.
And how would you lead on that?
How would I lead on that?
Yeah,
By example.
just in your role. Great.
Hi. As a I think for me, the core issue would be economic development. As a former owner of 3 small businesses and as a resident of the town, I understand the importance of having a really healthy business community in a town, especially if we're going to address issues like decreasing or keeping the property tax burden down. I think having run a couple of businesses and also been a resident, it gives me a unique perspective on the economic development side. And then I'm looking forward to the upcoming report that should be coming out. I understand the town has hired a consultant to give us an economic development study of the north and south entrances to town as well as Route 152. And I'll be interested to see what that comes out. And once that happens, I'd like to, or even before it happens, I'd like to be able to meet with both the businesses in town and also members of the residential community of town and talk to both sides and see if we could map out some strategies and maybe talk about anything they feel that might come up that could be a conflict to economic development in the town. It's important to get, all of us are stakeholders, whether we be a business owner or a resident, and I feel it's important to bring all of them together to discuss those issues. So I'd like to serve, if elected, I'd like to serve on the Economic Development Committee so that I could be, a leader going forward in this. I know there's multiple issues that will face the council, not only in the next 3 years, but beyond, but I feel that economic development will kind of encompass all of that. And I'd like to grow the business community without losing the assets that make this town special to the residents.
I'm just going to say the first thing that I had pointed out before, which is parking. I think a way to move towards a parking solution would be setting up a parking committee. Most bigger towns and cities have parking municipalities with the Newmarket Business Association and the town council to figure out, what's the 10, 15, 20-year plan, because, it's hard to grow the downtown or expand a business if you don't know where the cars are going to be. That being said, I think the whole the paradigm, I think, is going to shift in the next 20 years while we move to more ride-sharing, Uber, Lyft, and automated cars. So I don't actually think a parking garage is maybe the best idea right now, but I think that it would be nice to know as a business owner that there was a plan, even if it was like a 20-year plan, and just to know, how is the town going to evolve to allow people to continue coming to town. And then one of the biggest things for me is, I've had people who have come in, particularly, people in their 80s. This happened a couple of years ago. A couple came in, they're in their 80s, they're from Exeter, and they said, we wouldn't have been able to come if there wasn't a parking spot like right there across the street. And it's not a big deal for some people that can park 3 blocks away, but if you're older or if you've got any kind of disability where you can't walk 3 blocks, it's kind of unfair that you can't experience every part of the town. So even some little things like having spots where Uber drivers could drop people off, where people could drop if they're dropping people off, loading zones are becoming a thing, and other cities are looking at as we move kind of away from parking lots and to a new kind of driving experience.
Thank you.
Well, for me, my most important is personal freedoms, liberty. This may sound absolutely ridiculous, and it probably will, but the reason I'm here is because of the Tobacco 21 ordinance. I look at it not so much a health issue, but more like being told what people can and can't do as an adult. And it's an unenforceable ordinance. It's just your typical unenforceable feel-good ordinance, and I've been complaining about them for decades. So finally, my wife was like, you need to either stop complaining or, go run for town council and do something. So for me, that's the most important part is your personal liberty. Secondly is taxes, for sure. I mean, we have so many people who have been part of this community for so long, and even though I have young children in the school system, I look at it like, we need a better school system. Those school buildings are like 4 million years old. Something needs to be done. And then I'm like, by the same token, I'm basically asking people who've lived here their entire lives to not be able to live here anymore. And So the goal is to limit taxes, keep people here who want to stay here, and protect our freedoms.
Great. Thank you, Tony.
Hi, Al Zink, 22 Smith Garrison Road. As candidly as you can be, what would you say to someone about the tax rate in Newmarket? Your honest comment about our tax rate. And be as specific as you can about it. Thank you.
Are we going back this way again?
Yeah, we'll go back and forth.
Okay, cool. The tax rate is ridiculously high for the services that were offered. You look at the tax rates of other towns in the state, the benefits they get, like Durham has town trash. Why we still pay the tax rate we pay and we still have to buy trash bags? It just blows my mind. I mean, we have dogs licenses. We don't have a dog park. What's the licensing money go to? Like, our taxes are way too high for what we get. That candid.
I'll just say that from talking to some people that have moved here from other towns, someone who moved up from Massachusetts, what they told me was that the one good thing about where we're at now with the taxes is that the school's taken care of, the water treatment plant is taken care of. So I think that's the issue going forward is going to be, we're going to have to decide. I mean, there's going to be some things we're going to have to pay for with the wastewater treatment, which are going to be unavoidable. Some road repairs are going to be unavoidable. So I think, I don't think there's anyone that's going to be up here and say we want to raise taxes. I think we'd all love lower taxes. And that being said, it's going to be tough the next 5-10 years deciding what are the priorities. What do we have to do? What's going to be cheaper to take care of now than it will be in the future? And I don't think that's going to be an easy job. I think part of it too is, the state of New Hampshire's got sort of flawed funding mechanism for the school system. And I don't think that's any of our faults. I think that's a problem in Concord that, as a town, what pressure can we put on them to come up with a better funding mechanism for the school? Because that's the biggest chunk of the budget, You can look at different parts of it, but really comes down to the school. It costs a lot of money, and we all know we need to have a school. So I think that to me is where we're at.
Just to build on that, I think this is where it's really important to know not only who your town representatives are, but also your state representatives, because there are some that are fighting to change the way the schools are funded from the state. And I think going to talk to your state reps and talking to people who are running for those positions is just as important as who you're putting on the town council, because the school part of our taxes is the largest part of what we pay. I came from Barrington. I paid a lot of taxes. I didn't even have a high school. We were lucky to have an elementary school. So to me, the fact we get a high school and an elementary school is like a bonus. But I would like to, one of the reasons I think economic development is important is bringing in things that raise the tax base without adding additional students to the school, which would mean additional teachers, additional staff, additional buildings. So again, I think one of the roles I want to look at is economic development. But again, look also at your state reps, because that's where a lot of the money's coming from, is from the state.
Thank you.
And I would echo John to say I'm not up here to say we need to raise our taxes, our property tax. The neighborhood that I live in at Sleepy Hollow is probably more affected by the raise this past year than I would say a lot of the town is. A 9.5% raise to people that already are finding it hard to make ends meet is more money than some of them are able to pay. And as a result of that, and being the landowners that we all are of that parcel of land over there, it's going to result in an increase in the lot rent for each of the 87 homes in that park. And next Saturday, I have an annual meeting where I get to be the bearer of bad news that everyone in there's lot rent is going up. So I would say taxes are, if I was to tell someone from another town what I thought the taxes of Newmarket, being totally honest and frank, I would say that they are too high for the income level that I think I represent with the neighborhood that I live in.
Good, thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
I'm Greg Fuller. I live on Harvest Way. I've heard a lot of broad themes from you guys tonight, and I think that many of us agree that the tax burden is significant in this town. I've not heard anything specific from any of you about what you would do about that. And if you could just kind of address that specifically, what would you cut? Where would you cut? Across the board? Just if you could kind of, expand on what your thinking is on that, it'd be helpful, right? Because no one wants to raise taxes, but if you're entrusted with the rules that you're seeking, you're going to have to balance those things. So if you could, I'd appreciate it.
I think in order to answer that truthfully, I would have to know more about where the money is going in the town. Again, coming into this totally green, I don't have a lot of prior knowledge of a lot of the tax in this town, and therefore I can't make a decision to tell you, Greg, what I would cut, because I haven't really taken a look at it, which is on me. I need to take the responsibility of knowing what's going where of my tax dollars, and I lax in that.
It's always hard to say, specifically what will you cut the road budget. We all want roads we can drive on. We all want the potholes fixed. Would we increase the class sizes? We don't have control over what the school does. We get handed a school budget, so that's not within our purview, even though it's the larger dollar amount. I don't have a specific line item that I say I think we should cut this 10%. I don't want to say we're going to cut everything 5%. I don't care what it costs, to do that, or what we're going to have to give up. We just need to lower the taxes. It was my understanding some of the tax bump this year was due to the bonding of the school, and that certainly was something I did vote in favor of. It was quite a downsize from the original proposal that they had. I'm also in favor of the dam issue, which is going to raise some of the tax money. What I would like to do is, as each individual thing comes before the board, I'd like to look at the fact pattern and say, okay, is spending this money now going to save us money down the road? Or is spending this money now, it would be better if we postponed and spent it later? Let's take, for example, buying a new dump truck. Can the one we have be fixed? Does it need to be fixed? How much will it cost to repair? Much as we go through when we try to buy an automobile. Ours is falling apart. Is it the time to get rid of it now and buy a new one, or do we put $500 into fixing it? And I'd like to approach each thing that comes before the council that we have control over and take that same analytical approach to it and say, is it better to spend the money like on the dam? We've been talking about it for years. Is it better to spend the money now, or wait until we incur fines by the state for not having acted, or wait until the dam fails, or not do anything, or take it down and have to deal with hazardous waste disposal of the sediment that's there? So I'd like I said before, being a CPA and looking at the facts and being very fiscally oriented, I'd like to see each thing that comes before us and make a decision based on, is it going to save us tax dollars down the road if we spend the money now? But as far as saying which particular line item I'd cut, I can't tell you that tonight.
I was looking through the budget last night, and it's really hard when you're going through, and especially you're looking at the payroll, and there's a lot of people that do a lot of different jobs. It's really hard to say. I mean, I was looking at all these names, and I thought, I assume someone knows all these people, because there's a lot of names on that, and it's hard to say. I would agree. It's hard to say that I would cut one thing or the other, but one thing I would like to look into is what can we look at for revenue generation that's not property taxes? One example would be, right now you can rent a town parking spot. I don't know if any of you knew this, but you can rent one if you need to. If you rent downtown or you need an extra spot, because you have an apartment, you can rent a town parking spot, which is over, or some of them are Railroad Drive, some of them are over by the library. Those are $1,000 a year. Now there's 50 parking spots downtown that no one's allowed to park in overnight. So right there, 50 spots, $1,000, it's $50,000. That's not a ton of money, but I think if we had enough smaller amounts of money coming in, the town owns some land around some various spots around town. Some on New Road and some back here, and it's like, could some of that be developed into office space or something that would generate more revenue as aside from just residential property taxes?
For me, without having an audit of all the town spending of the tax money, which I would love to see, it's easier to protect the town from wasting tax money on new projects and keeping a rein on proposed ideas than it is to go back and just say things like we're gonna, like was mentioned before, like 5% of every expenditure. I mean, you're talking about salaries, you're talking about town residents losing their jobs because of something like that. I'm more interested in curbing future spending than I am trying to fix the mistakes of the past.
Thank you.
Michael Cahill, Ashwaubenon Road, one of your state representatives. And I wanted to bring up something.
Can you fix the school thing?
I'm working on it.
I just talked to my state rep.
Michael's working on it.
This is my quest. I've been working on this since I got elected.
I know you have.
And the thing is, I wanted to bring to your attention that there are ways of getting more money or spending less of the town's money by getting more from the state. There's a number of things that the state used to fund, pension programs and things like this, that they just stopped funding. And some of the things that we're working on in Concord now is property tax relief. Property tax as opposed to business tax. Because we've been cutting the business profits tax, business enterprise tax, and giving away a 10-year tax break to Dean Kamen for bringing a new medical industry to Manchester. Things are going to have good jobs, but I mean, those are good jobs. Why do we need to give them a tax break? So I voted against that, one of the few. So I think we need to do things for the state, at the state level, to help the town, and don't even get me started on building aid, because that's a really sore spot. But the point is, you have to spend money. When you have to spend it, you need to spend it, because what you find is that later on it costs more. Like the issue with the school, because we turned down several warrant articles when the school building aid was there. When we would have had 30%, we turned it down. And so, penny wise, pound foolish. So I just wanted to get, a sense of, there's a bill going through the House now that would allow the towns, at their discretion. Right now we can have, I think it's $5, an extra fee when you register your car that stays in town and fixes local roads and bridges. There's a proposal to raise that limit to 10. Now the towns have the freedom to do nothing, just not do nothing at all, do 6, do 5, or do 10. And what would you think about that if that was to pass? You'd have the ability to raise a fee. Yes, it's a fee that people would pay on their cars and things like that, but it would be locally spent. What would your view be on that?
I much prefer to spend taxes locally than to send it to Concord. So, I mean, without knowing what we're going to be spending it on, tentatively in favor. I mean, I don't mind spending taxes on my town to help my town. I don't want to spend an extra. I don't want to generate another tax to give away to somebody else. If we're going to generate another tax, it's going to be to benefit us as a community more than anybody else.
Yeah, I also I think that'd be a good idea. I think mainly it would be good in Newmarket because we have a 30% rental. 30% of the residents are renting, who aren't directly paying the property tax. I mean, they are paying the property taxes via their rent, but I think that would be a way of, having everyone have skin in the game, if you will.
I agree as well.
And same. Something that stays here in town as opposed to going somewhere, even be it $5 to $10 per registration. It's money that's staying here in town, and then to ensure that it's used properly within the town.
Thank
Which,
you
yes,
all
I'd be
very
in favor
much.
of that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dale Pike, 30 Smith Garrison Road. I'm currently on the town council. And I'm not sure where the question is in this, but I did have a couple of suggestions, whoever is on the council, and you can perhaps make comments on what you think of these parts of the process. I'm finishing up 6 years on the council, and one of the things that I think was helpful, because a lot of the questions tonight have been around efficiency, and I thought it was a very helpful thing that we did about 2 to 3 years ago, that we brought in an outside consulting that interviewed various parts of the town and came back and gave us a report on, you know, where the town was doing in terms of our efficiency efforts. So for those of you that end up on the council, that I think that report is still a relevant piece of information, and it's probably something that's worth renewing every, you know, you've got a few years before you do it again. But that was a helpful thing. A lot of time, I think it, and I'll say that one of the ways that affected us is we actually felt pretty good about it, is that it made us understand that there is a lot that the employees of the town worked super hard to make it as efficient as possible. It's a little bit tough in Newmarket because we don't have some of the high-end real estate that other surrounding communities have, and we operate as a small city. And that's not, I never thought of it as a small city when I joined the council, but we have a downtown that we all enjoy, and that density does challenge sometimes. So I think that would be one suggestion, and I would be interested in your comments on it. The other thing I heard 6 years ago was there was a lot of people, you know, people were very concerned about the taxes when I first came on the council. That's not changed, and a lot of people wanted to regionalize. And I think the most effective things that we've done to try to regionalize in the town, it turns out it's very, very hard. We spent a lot of time at our meetings talking about regionalizing with other meetings. That's hard with other towns, excuse me. You know, regionalizing between towns, there's a lot of that goes in between, you know, the fire departments. There's a lot of things that go on like that that'll take you a while to hear from when you talk to the town's workers. But when it comes to regionalizing, the most effective thing that we've done is to share services with the school. And that's a long-term process, but I'd be interested in hearing what each of you thinks about that process, what your familiarity is, and what you think about the future of that.
Okay. All right. So when we have these forked questions, so the first part of the question is you're asking about thoughts about the efficiency study and doing it over and over again, updating it after a certain amount of time, and what you think. And then the second is related to regionalization and the benefits and the challenges associated with that.
Specifically, what we've been doing that's regionalizing is within the school, within the town, we share services with the school.
Oh, so not necessarily external regionalization, but internal, quote unquote, regionalization.
Clearer, but we did not have much success in expanding. There is existing regionalization that already goes on, that had been set up through state agencies. And we trying to expand on, I mean, I won't say none of that's happening. You know, I think we're in the process of going back to having new Vales work with us on, you know, participate in dispatch with Newmarket, so we'll have some revenue from that. There's small amounts that have gone on. But the biggest amount of change in the terms of how we share personnel within the town of Newmarket is that we have increased the amount which if we need a certain kind of expertise, like a facilities person that's expert in our facilities, and we can share that person with the school, we've tried to do that, which is something that wasn't done 6 years ago.
So, but that kind of sounds like a no-brainer. So what question do you have for these four related to that?
I was just interested in people, what familiarity they have with it, and I will tell you that it's not as easy as it sounds like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But there are towns that try to do it, and it kind of flounders. So it requires a certain amount of effort between the school board and the town council to sustain the trust and sustain the effort to make sure that everybody's staying, you know, there's mutual understanding. Both boards have their own area, so I think that's the kind of question I wanted to see how much people understand it and what they feel towards that process.
Great. So I've done everything I can to give you guys time to think about that. So we're
now being totally
we're talking
confused.
about the opportunities and the challenges associated with internal and external regionalization, sharing resources with our school, and the challenges because we're all really far apart. They're on the third floor. You know,
Yes.
the town's on the first floor. That's really far apart. And then we're talking about different towns and regionalizing services like fire and police and dispatch, which we have a great resource that other communities, you know, despite the obvious benefit to them, refuse to join with us. Sorry, I'm getting Newmarket centric. What do you think about those things? What are the opportunities for Newmarket? What are the challenges, and what would you do about them? And I forgot, are we going?
Yes, we're going
we're
this way.
this way. Okay.
Because I can't possibly remember all of that till I do get around the other way.
I'm trying to help you.
Thank you, I appreciate it, I think. Regionalization, what I know of regionalization as it was explained just now, just to me comes down to communication, which within any organization I've ever been in is spoken of often and followed up on hardly ever. It's hard, you know, and using the example of having an expert on some topic in a system where you can't get to them to use their expertise on something. So getting people to communicate, getting people to know where people's strong suits are and where people are best needed or best used, that's the regionalization that I'm here. If I'm totally off, please let me know. But that's regionalization as I understand it. The other part of the question being the review process, coming from the military and having written hundreds of reviews, not only in the military but after the military, I think any type of an independent entity that comes in to review and lets us know where we stand on a semi-regular basis is much better than not knowing where we are and going years and years until something is forced and then finding out it was something we could have probably fixed 15 years ago if we had just had someone take a look at it from an outside point of view.
Great, thanks.
For the first part of the question, I'd be very interested in reading the efficiency report. I've always been one who believed that you don't work harder, you work smarter. Several times in my career, my husband and I have gone into a situation where we've been able to take a job that was being done by multiple people and weed it down to one or two, just getting rid of inefficiencies. So that I'd love to read that report. As far as regionalization goes, I know that's a difficult thing. We faced that when I was in Barrington as well, trying to regionalize for a high school. And evidently the kids from Barrington are still being sent to Dover High, and it's been 17 years since I left there, so that hasn't gone very well. I'd like to actually know if there was a specific person designated from the town council that interfaces with the school. And if there isn't, would that be something that the council might look into, so that if you're trying to share like a facilities manager or even additional things in the future, if you had a designated point person from both sides that met to discuss those kinds of things, I'd be interested in dealing with that.
I don't know if you want me to answer that.
I don't.
It was a rhetorical question.
Let's let everybody have a chance first, and then we'll.
I can ask you later.
In terms of efficiency, I think it's definitely, you know, really important for organizations to always be trying to work in the efficiency. My restaurant is very small, and I've worked very hard at, you know, maximizing the square footage, you know, having the smallest staff I can afford to. That's been really tricky, but I've learned a lot about how to do a lot with a little, and I definitely think that, you know, with a little ingenuity, a little, you know, Yankee ingenuity, a lot of problems can be solved without necessarily dumping money on them. I don't think that's always the solution. I think the town made a good move. I don't know if it was last year that they hired Greg, the facilities manager, whose last name escapes me. But he seems to be doing a really good job auditing all the town buildings and stuff. And I think, you know, allowing him to keep doing his work seems to be bringing the two entities a little bit closer. He seems to have a really good understanding of the different, the timelines and all the different equipment that's going to need to get repaired and how that's going to work. And I think he's a pretty valuable asset in terms of the efficiency and integrating those two systems.
Well, I think a third-party view of our town and the direction it's going is always a good idea. When you're staring too long with your own eyes, you don't see anything anymore. You need to have another set of eyes who don't have a dog in the fight to tell you exactly what you need to hear. Oftentimes, you don't like to hear it, but it helps you and can only be good for the town. I am shocked about the other part, though. The school board and the town council are just now starting to work together. The thing that we paid the most taxes on, they were at odds over the years. I'm glad they're working it out now, and that definitely needs to be fostered. It's important. I can't imagine it's taking this long, but I would definitely like to see that preserved and widened and be more open lines of communication between the two. I think it can only help both, really.
Do you want to come up and explain the council and the school board's relationship now that everybody's had an opportunity? It's only fair that everybody gets the answer.
Actually, I just would make two comments. One is that they actually, as I understand it, there was not really within the Hampshire regulation allowing the sort of shared positions that we have until, we were one of the first communities in the state to do it because it hadn't been allowed before under the New Hampshire RSAs. And the second thing is that they actually, it is part of the process that the chair of both the school board and the town council are, and it's not within our charter, but it is a sort of something we've tried to create as a policy that those two will be in contact, and that the regular meeting is the two chairs and the two administrators. It probably averages about quarterly. There is a conversation with those four people. And then we also have institutionalized having a joint meeting of the school board, town council at least once a year.
Great, thank you.
Good.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Josh Quigley. I live at 7 Penstock Way. My question is really simple. It's two parts. What are your positions on the two warrant articles on the ballot next week? The sewer upgrades and then the dam. And I do want to say in regards to the dam that just so it's clear, the town never did a sediment analysis, so we do not know for a fact that there are or there are not toxic residual left over behind the dam. So.
What's the second question?
Your position on the dam measure.
Oh, okay. All right. So all right. Simple question, two parts. The two different warrant articles. Got it. Okay. That one.
Oh, me.
Yeah. Sorry. We could start in the middle if you want. Yeah.
You could do that. Actually, I am planning to vote in favor on Tuesday as a resident in both the dam issue and the water system. I've attended meetings, I've read the available information, and I do support the dam renovations. We were talking earlier about tax revenue. One of my feelings is if you do go through with not replacing the dam and you remove it instead, I feel that the property values along the river will probably decrease, which would mean a decrease in tax revenue. I also feel that part of why we have a thriving downtown and why we get people to come here is because we have the dam, because we have that waterfront, and I really feel that it needs to be maintained. My understanding is removing it, sediments aside, removing it would be just as expensive as fixing it. So I'm in favor of fixing it. The water system, I also support that water system upgrade. Parts of the system are over 100 years old. Also, my understanding is that by combining several of those projects together, we increase our ability to lower the overall project costs and also allow the town to apply for additional grants. Clean drinkable water is everybody's right, so I definitely support the water system as well.
I'm pro-dam. I think that the dam committee, they took 5-6 years to go over this. and I think that, we should listen to them and to their recommendation. I think if the dam was going to be a major ecological issue, the EPA would not have let us even consider keeping it. And on the water infrastructure, I think that's something we have to do. It's something we have to do, and that goes into the ratepayers of the water system, and it's not a real massive increase. From what I have read, it's not going to be a huge increase month to month or quarterly to quarterly. So
I'm in favor of both, although I am interested in finding out why soil analysis wasn't done. Why that wasn't ever, was it ever done? What was it? Oh, it was.
And again, in favor of the dam project for a lot of the same reasons. The waterfront itself, which is a big draw to the town, and again, the cost overall of keeping it versus taking it down, I would be in favor of keeping the dam. The other being the water. We talking water, sewer, or just water? Just water.
Yeah, just water.
Just water.
On the warrant articles.
Yeah, having to deal with the same issues in the neighborhood I'm dealing with now. The water, something we all take for granted, but when it becomes compromised, it's a huge inconvenience for everyone. So I'd be in favor again of the warrant for the water system as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? So, yes.
Because it's been a little bit in the press and stuff. As far as the issue of toxic sediments and the dam goes, as far as I know, nobody has actually, we didn't do sampling for the sediments. So it's true that they weren't. What you can say is that there was a historic tannery up on the Piscassic where it comes into the lamprey, and tanneries generally produced a lot of toxic waste. That's part of their history around there. So that's why when the dam removal study was done by Gomez and Sullivan, they alerted us that would need to be tested in order, and if there were sediments there, they would mobilize when the dam was removed, and that couldn't be allowed to happen. If the sediments tested positive, we would have to have them removed and taken to a hazardous waste facility. At that point in time, there had been, we'd had a number of public meetings, and it was hard to find anybody that was coming forward and speaking in favor of dam removal, and a lot of the reasons that people thought dam removal made sense, or some of the original reasons why it was put forward, was that they thought it would reduce flooding when we had a big flood event. But we had already learned by then that it wouldn't improve flooding. So a lot of the voices that thought there was something that would be helped by removal of the dam, and yes, we didn't get an estimate on the cost of whether the sediments
Let's not make this a dam removal meeting. All right?
I'm sorry.
I get it. It's an important issue. Everybody said their point.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's
okay.
all there is, but that's what happened on the sediments.
Okay. Anybody else? Because I have a great question that no one has asked. So this is a very simple question. We'll close it out with this since nobody else, and we're getting up to 8:30, which is when the Newmarket Business Association expires. So I have enjoyed this conversation, and I love this town, and I've always loved this town, and I inject humor into these things just because I know that we're all people and we all care about it, and at the end of the day, we always come together. We have come a long way. I love the fact that parking is a problem in Newmarket, because when I started, it wasn't a problem. Trust me, it wasn't a freaking problem. So my question to the four of you, and this is the most unique opportunity, why didn't you sign up? Why are you write-ins?
Can I go first?
Yep.
As I said in my initial statement, I retired a few years ago and have been thinking about what part of town government I wanted to get involved in. And in the meantime, while I was thinking, I got involved in the in the program at my church for the Seacoast Family Promise, and started looking around started going to town council meetings, started looking at other opportunities. And I had planned on, as I said, doing it next year with the next go-round. And when no one signed up, I thought, well, maybe this is somebody's way of telling me this is the time. So if it hadn't been this year, it would have been next year.
I think I'd always relied on other people to sign up, and other people always had, and there had always been names on the ballot. And so this time I looked and unfortunately learned that there were no names for the positions for the town council. I don't think it comes from people not caring for the town. I would hope that it wouldn't be apathy that it's taken over and people don't care about the town. I think sometimes it has to do with our own time and how we manage our time, and do we have the time to do it. But I got to a point where I think I'm echoing you early on, that basically I need to either put up or shut up. So I think this time I wanted to step forward and say, you know what, I'll take it on. I'll be the person to step up and do something for my own community, a community that I'm a transplant in. I know that even after 25 years. I know I'm not a townie, but I consider Newmarket to be my town, and in that, because of that, is why I've stepped up to do this.
I had been talking to Casey and Tony, two members of the town council, about running for the last year or so, been bouncing it around, and kind of was like, well, maybe I'll wait till next cycle, let somebody else have a go. And then when no one signed up, I felt kind of just talking to town council members, they're gonna literally, if no one was a write-in, they were gonna have to appoint someone. They literally had to talk to the state about how it would even work if no one was on the ballot and no one signed up to be a write-in candidate. And I thought, for someone that is always complaining to people in the town council about a number of things, I thought it was probably about time that I do my civic duty. And I hope someday, everyone, there's many boards in town, and they frequently have empty seats, and I think it's, on all of us at some point to do your time.
How long are you in for, John?
For me, it was just, I've lived in New Hampshire my entire life. I remember growing up in Seabrook, tough town to grow up in, by the way. It was a very small town. People, they were honest with each other. They weren't nice, but they were honest with each other, and they looked out for each other even when they disagreed. And every year, every 5 years, every time I turn around, it seems that we're losing less and less of New Hampshire's identity, which for me was that small state in the Northeast that didn't really care what anybody else did around them. The state went its own way. And I feel like we're losing that identity. And it starts at the town level and goes to the state level. It's all of us. And my wife told me to. So, here I am.
I want to remind you that I am not running for anything. And I also want to thank the Newmarket Business Association. Please keep this going. It's an important part of who we are as a town. I want to thank the four of you. I'm glad that we were able to have that extended conversation with you. Can we go around one more time and say your name? Because we have to write in the name. And yes, you should fill in the bubble. They will try. Having been the town moderator, we actually have to report the number of people who vote for Mickey Mouse. And I don't like it, but we do. So, but please say your name so that people can write in your name and we can get this done, because it's important. This is 2 out of 7 people that will be on our town council.
John McLaughlin.
It's John Kuiper. I'm not Johnny Boston. It's John Kuiper is my last name.
It's Helen.
I'm not sure if it will count if you put in Johnny Boston. I think it will, but I'm not 100% sure. No?
There'll be multiple conversations with the Secretary of State.
My name is Helen Sanders.
And my name is Colin White.
Thank you all. Good night.